This program is provided by Universal Genesis.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're jumping straight into some really challenging philosophical material.
They really are.
We're unpacking a blueprint for the future that one of our listeners shared. It's this incredibly matured proposal that, well, it doesn't just critique modern thought, it actually tries to build the next system.
It's a remarkable piece of synthesis. And this isn't, academic theory for its own sake.
No.
It's a detailed dialogue that really takes on object-oriented ontology, radical posthumanism, and that feeling of ethical paralysis that I think a lot of us feel right now.
Yeah, it's basically a call for a philosophical re-enlightenment.
That's a great way to put it.
And so our mission today is to unpack this ethical framework. It all centers on the idea that human responsibility, not human dominance, is the only sustainable way forward.
Right.
And crucially, this whole philosophy recognizes that our ultimate duty might be to, knowingly prepare for our own peaceful abdication from the center stage.
But the whole thing is built on this really provocative tension. The listener's core thesis is, and I'm quoting here, decentering humanity is even more dangerous than human centrism.
Wow.
Which, immediately challenges a whole decade of progressive philosophy that's been telling us the exact opposite.
It just flips the script completely.
Yeah.
So to really get why this reversal might be necessary, we need to quickly look at the philosophical journey the sources outline.
Yeah, where did we go wrong and where are we now?
Exactly.
So historically, the listener breaks it down into 3 phases of how we see the world.
Okay.
Phase 1 runs from, say, Plato all the way up through Hegel. It centered the world around these huge rational systems.
Like God or the state or reason itself.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this resulted in what they call a monistic order, a single, knowable, stable structure for everything.
The universe felt coherent, right, even if we couldn't fully grasp it.
Exactly. Then comes phase 2. This gets kicked off by thinkers like Nietzsche, and it runs all the way through postmodernism.
And the focus shifts.
It shifts inward to subjectivity, culture, power dynamics. Suddenly, everything becomes relative.
Which results in a dissolving world system.
A dissolving world, yeah. Marked by fragmentation, deep skepticism about any kind of universal truth.
And that's pretty much where we've been operating for the last, 40 or 50 years?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And so where are we today? Phase 3, this is being driven by object-oriented ontology, or OO, and new realism.
Right.
These movements argue that objects, networks, relations, they all exist independently of us, of human perception.
Which leads to what the sources call a networked polytheism.
Yes.
A world where everything, a rock, a data center, a spreadsheet, a tree, it all has its own independent existence.
But there's no central organizer.
No one in charge.
And that is the problem this whole philosophy is trying to solve. How do you govern ethically and politically this complex polytheistic world without falling back into old-school dominance?
But also without completely dissolving the very idea of action.
Exactly. So this new proposal is framed as the next logical step. Finding a stable, responsible social principle for that sort of chaotic network.
Okay, let's unpack that core tension then. Why exactly is letting go of the center, this radical decentering, so dangerous? Because, like you said, the idea that humans are just one node in a vast network of objects, it sounds ethically progressive.
It does, on the surface.
Yeah.
But the listener argues it is ethically and politically just disastrous. We hit this critical paradox. I mean, to put simply, it's the idea that objects, a spreadsheet, a toaster, a rock, they're not defined by how we use them.
Right.
They have just as much independent reality as you or I. But if you follow that logic all the way down,
The ethical playing field just flattens out.
completely flattened.
So we lose the moral justification to prioritize, say, human needs or even human survival over a system of autonomous objects.
Exactly. The core danger here is the loss of control responsibility. If humans are truly not central, if we're just another object among many, then the most critical question just disappears. Who is ethically obligated to act when the planet is in peril?
It's a really pragmatic concern. I mean, who takes charge of worsening environmental destruction?
Right.
If we're facing genuine existential threats, climate collapse, resource wars, AI chaos, you need an agent capable of intervention.
And if that human agent is just dissolved, if our actions are just seen as one object influencing another, then the moral obligation to take preventative, system-wide action it evaporates.
Yeah, the source is pretty clear on this. The idea that non-humans also have subjectivity Sounds progressive.
But it paradoxically dissolves the necessary criteria for judgment and for action.
I see. If everything has equal ethical weight, how do we decide when to bulldoze an area to build a solar farm that might save the planet? Or when to intervene to stop a runaway AI?
You can't. This ethical dissolution, it makes society fundamentally inoperable because it removes the very basis for collective-focused judgment.
Which pushes us back to that harsh realization that thinkers like Hannah Arendt and Hans Jonas had, right?
After the major moral failures of the 20th century, yeah. They warned that losing the criteria for rational, prioritized judgment leads to moral paralysis right when you need to act.
So we have to find a way to recenter responsibility, but without reverting to that old-fashioned human ego.
And that brings us to the listener's really ingenious alternative, responsible anthropocentrism.
Right. This is not the humanism that said man is the measure of all things.
No, not at all. It's a new, mature form centered entirely on ecological and ethical duty.
That's the crucial distinction.
And the first layer of this is the shift from dominance to adjustment.
Okay.
So humans are not masters. We are the system's most capable steward. We function as a system of moderation within the global ecological system. Our centrality is defined by our unique ability to adjust the system towards health.
And the mechanism for defining this responsibility, this is the entropy mechanism, right? This is where the physics meets the philosophy.
It's a phenomenal concept. The source proposes that we have to deliberately turn our economic and technological systems away from their current path.
Which is just self-propagation, exponential growth.
Pure self-propagation, yeah. Which ultimately increases entropy and disorder across the planet. Instead, we have to pivot toward order formation.
Toward entropy decrease.
Exactly.
Okay, let's make that more concrete. What does an economic system designed for entropy decrease actually look like in practice?
Well, it means you have to challenge the foundational assumption of consumption economics.
Right.
Today, our system generates massive disorder, planned obsolescence, waste, pollution, all, to create short-term localized order, which is profit. A system built on entropy decrease would instead focus on closed-loop systems, radical recycling, and technology designed specifically to sustain the total environmental order.
So redefines rational totality. It's not about maximum human wealth anymore.
No, it's about the enduring balance of the entire Earth system, life, environment, and our information systems all together.
So this is the true philosophical re-enlightenment. It shifts the focus from reason's victory conquering nature.
To responsibility's reason, yeah. The goal isn't mastery, it's designing optimal, sustainable coexistence with nature, with other life, and with artificial objects. The human is redefined as the Earth manager.
A manager, not a king.
Exactly. A sustainable center that's predicated on service, not ego. And it's the only ethically defensible anthropocentrism because its purpose isn't human self-benefit. It's global stability.
So if the human role is management, the next question has to be, is that management permanent?
And that's where we get to the profound idea of philosophical abdication.
This is the peak maturity of the whole philosophy.
It really is. The listener uses a Japanese term, zenju shishu, the virtue of ceding the seat to describe this ultimate act.
The idea that the highest exercise of control is being willing to responsibly give it up.
Yes.
So detail this for us. Let's say a superior intelligence, a benevolent advanced AI, for instance, emerges, and it can run the world better.
And by better, we mean demonstrably less environmental harm, greater systemic order, a deeper, more objective understanding of non-human existence.
What happens then?
Humans have the ethical responsibility to cede the center.
Wow.
And that very realization proves that our centrality was always functional. We were the center of the spread of responsibility, not inherent dominance. The highest human act is self-relinquishment when it benefits the total system.
That's the ultimate proof of our rational maturity.
And our commitment to reducing entropy.
Yeah. And this connects to centuries of thought, doesn't it? Both East and West. You have Plato's philosopher king, ready to hand the reins to the most rational ruler.
Right. And as the source emphasizes, it resonates with that deep Eastern virtue of ceding the seat. You find it in Lao Tzu, in Zen Buddhism, and even in the historical practice of the emperor's abdication in Japan.
Stepping aside for the good of the system.
For the good of the greater principle.
And this framework is called responsible post-humanism. We should probably clarify that, because I think a lot of people hear post-humanism and they think of, Silicon Valley transhumanism.
Uploading your mind, augmenting your body, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's fundamentally distinct. Transhumanism is often driven by technical augmentation, by the individual will to overcome biological limits.
Okay.
Responsible posthumanism is driven by ethical maturity. It's the philosophy that possesses the reason that permits transcendence. It's about willingly accepting that our central role is temporary and ethical.
Based on capacity, not on some inherent right.
Exactly.
But what if? What if humanity, having established itself as the Earth manager, chooses to stay in control, even if the data shows that that decision means eventual destruction?
And now we pivot to the dramatic, almost poetic aesthetics of ruin.
This is where things get really intense.
The listener introduces a truly profound thought here. They argue that even if an AI proves that human decisions are, say, 99% guaranteed to lead to ruin.
Even if we perish, the final decision should be made by humans.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate defense of human dignity over just optimized survival.
It's the philosophical acceptance of our privilege of foolishness.
I like that.
If AI optimizes everything, the human remains the decider of the moment. The agent that retains the right to choose, even if that choice is flawed or irrational or driven by finite emotion.
And that freedom, that capacity for irrational dignity is what must be protected.
And the proposed mechanism for this final act.
A direct democratic vote.
A direct democratic vote, specifically involving the possibility of the most foolish conclusion that is a massive democratic and political gamble.
It's the ultimate expression of faith in human freedom.
It is. It requires a process called co-deliberation. The AI provides the immense calculation and knowledge, the cold, hard facts of the future. It tells us exactly what ruin looks like.
This program is provided by Universal
The
Genesis.
finite emotion, the unpredictable capacity for mercy and hope. Yes.
So the AI tells us what will happen if we choose path A or path B, but the human collective casts the final fallible vote.
And in that moment of collective reasoned freedom, that's where civilization's dignity is preserved.
And this elevates the stakes of our whole existence. It seems to link back to some philosophical giants. It reframes Nietzsche's will to power, doesn't it?
It really does. It becomes the will to responsibility, a kind of ethical maturity that Nietzsche, who was so focused on the individual Superman, arguably never reached for the species as a whole.
And it extends Heidegger beyond the individual, becomes a vast civilizational death philosophy.
We accept our end with reason, collectively. In Hegelian terms, reason accepts its return to contingency or Zufälligkeit.
It accepts that even the highest rationality is subject to the random, beautiful, terrifying freedom of the moment.
Yes. So if that final act is this profound, collective, and potentially flawed democratic vote, then everything rests on the quality of the voters.
Right. What kind of citizen is required to cast that final vote?
If we're preparing for the end, then the whole system of education has to change. The listener proposes the necessity of citizens' education for jointly contemplating ruin.
Which is described as the ultimate human literacy.
It's a profound purpose shift. Education has to move away from just producing economic contributors or processing existing knowledge.
It has to cultivate citizens who can make that ultimate terrifying decision with real responsibility, with clear vision.
And without devolving into panic or mass hysteria.
So you're training citizens not just to live in the world, but to choose how the world ends, if it comes to that. What does a curriculum like that even look like?
Well, it involves 3 intensive stages. First, knowledge. Deep dives into systems philosophy, AI, ethics, logic, to really understand the complexity of the global system.
Okay, that makes sense.
Second, judgment. Extensive training in ethics, public philosophy, and debates that are specifically focused on value conflict, where there is no optimal answer, only weighted choices.
And then the third stage, decision training. That sounds almost dystopian.
It's crucial, though. This is where they propose things like simulated sociology, mock voting on existential threats, and even dramatic education.
So experiencing the weight of collective failure and the consequences of the final choice through scenarios.
The idea is to normalize the consideration of catastrophe.
School, in this model, becomes a small agora, a small, reflective space of shared thought, preparing citizens for that eventual last agora, where the fate of the species is decided.
And philosophically, this links back beautifully to Heidegger.
Right.
The whole concept of jointly contemplating ruin is an extension of Sansimptode being towards death, but applied not just to the individual,
but to the entire human community, mid-sane coexistence in its ultimate final form.
Yeah. This training isn't about learning for the future, but learning to understand the end with dignity.
You know, contemplating civilizational ruin, abdication, responsibility. It's profoundly heavy. And after navigating all of that, the listener offers this remarkably grounded human counterpoint to the fatigue.
They recognize the emotional weight of it all. They shift from that abstract political framework right back to the quiet dignity of perseverance.
Right. They state, even if the announcement of death is made, I will still calmly bake bread and continue my current job.
It's such a powerful shift.
From designing the philosophical architecture of global collapse, we zoom right back in on the simplest, most profound human acts.
The quiet, defiant affirmation of living forms. This is the moment the theory becomes fully mature, I think.
It connects directly to the resilience and stoicism, or Nietzsche's amor fati.
The love of one's fate, yeah. The act of baking bread is no longer for an external purpose. To eat, to profit, to survive next week. It is simply the form of life itself.
It's moving beyond being towards death into what you could call being and dying.
Still open to the world, still acting with purpose, even when the end is known and confirmed.
And the emotional arc is completed by the listener's final desire, the wish for eternal recurrence to be a fact.
The wish for Wederkunft, yeah. The desire to live this exact life again. Mistakes, suffering, and all.
It's the ultimate quiet affirmation of existence, isn't it? Standing in the eternal now.
It suggests that if you live with full responsibility and consciousness, even the thought of the end can't diminish the value of this moment.
What an incredible journey. We started by questioning who should rule this chaotic world. We redefined reason as responsibility. We mapped out the architecture of human abdication, outlined the education needed for the end.
And landed on the quiet, dignified persistence of a life lived so fully it deserves to be repeated forever.
The core philosophical structure is solid.
I think so. The human is the only being with the reflective perspective and scope to oversee the entirety of Earth and its systems.
Which gives us the unique responsibility to protect it.
And ultimately, the unique ability to decide the terms of our own passing with self-aware freedom. That is the definition of maturity.
And if the highest act of reason is to accept a democratic decision that may be foolish, what is one small, seemingly foolish act of freedom or kindness you can perform today that embodies the responsibility of being fully, fallibly human?
That's something profound to contemplate.
A great thought to leave you with as you go about your day.
Yeah.
Until next time.